Welcome to Suthichai Live English. My guest today, Kshaped Pitak, who is the MD of Thailand Future and CEO of Link. Well, he's one of the experts on technology, the future of the Thai economy, and of course the global economy as well. I'm going to talk to him about the future of AI as far as Thailand is concerned and where should Thailand be in this new AI landscape. สวัสดีครับคุณณภัทรครับครับสวัสดีครับ So I've been observing your very busy activities discussing the future of AI, especially in relation to where the Thai government should be looking at. How do you see the general landscape of AI in Thailand compared to our neighbors, compared to the regional development here?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's my pleasure to be here. The way I look at AI is the following, right? So there's an AI landscape as an industry, like a tech industry, and there's also the side of it where the impact that AI could have on society and on the economy. I think on both fronts we're quite far behind, and what's the most troubling is we don't seem to have a strategy in terms of like which route do we go, right? Like we have limited amount of people who can actually work in AI. We can actually start a company, hire people, and find a niche to compete in this landscape. If you look at, I mean, the US or China, I think they're probably the farthest along. You would see that the ecosystem or the entire industry surrounds AI has a number of new players in all aspects of the supply chain of AI, which goes from chip making to things like infrastructure upgrades like wiring, data centers, liquid cooling, all kinds of hardware, infrastructural layer. And then you have players who invent foundational models like the generative AI that we're hearing about every day. Right. It gets smarter and smarter every day. That's like the base layer of the 2024 AI, right? And then you have players who build applications on top. Right. Now you see things like Perplexity, you see things like Canva, like applications that use these brains, to power new use cases, and all the way to the top of the pyramid where companies or even people start using AI for their work or their activities. I don't really see a focused sort of strategy in AI in Thailand yet on both fronts. I do have some ideas based on my observations, being both an economist and running businesses in Thailand, familiarity with the tech industry here. But I do worry a bit more on the impact side that has nothing to do with AI, but it's being impacted by people around us using AI.
Right. Jobs and job security, social impact, and of course the inequality that could widen even more than when we talk about the digital disruption many years ago.
Exactly. We can talk a bit more about how do we groom or grow the AI industry, but I think the crux of the matter is we're in a very vulnerable situation as a society and the economy, especially when there's an AI disruption coming, right? Like I see at least 3 areas where we have to turn it into an opportunity in case instead of losing out. So one would be, I think, the labor market here, not just here, right, but like across around the globe. I think labor, like workers are losing out in terms of market share in the GDP of all economies. Basically, we work harder, but we earn less money. That's the basic story of the labor economics of the past few years. And it's getting to a dangerous point where, asset prices are, land, properties, stuff that new generation have to buy or to make it, right?
Yeah.
The prices have gone up way more than the past few generations.
It's true.
And so you have a problem where the majority of the people in a country cannot live in the level that they dream of. And on top of that, you have AI, which gets smarter and smarter every day, which can replace them, you know, maybe a little or a lot, right? Like, and in Thailand, studies after studies have shown that we have a lot of jobs that are exposed to that. And at first, I didn't believe them until I went to visit a number of companies and actually take note of what actually is being done from the day-to-day basis, right? So in factories, in warehouses, eventually you have robots because of global warming. It's just too hot to work in warehouses in April in Thailand. Like it's unsafe.
Yeah.
No amount of AC can help these workers. It's just not humane anymore in the next few years, right? But what's surprising to me was when I visited offices, right, like in Bangkok or in large cities, I find that maybe half of the tasks that people do are routine tasks.
That's true.
And that's quite dangerous, right? Like, I don't think Thai companies are as harsh as Western companies to just like that and then just replace people. Like culturally, we don't do that, right? Unless it's super necessary, like in during COVID, right? Like when I was on your show, that was a very rough period for labor market. But I do see stress like a lot, both from people working currently on routine jobs, as well as people finding jobs right now. We have a number of factories that closed down. We have new generations looking for new jobs. There was a survey, I think by Deloitte or someplace, finding that the number one worry for Generation Z is no longer politics, but the fact that, job security.
Jobs, yeah.
How are they going to live with, superhuman intelligent being that's only like a couple $100 a month to rent?
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, their concern is the quality of life.
Yeah. And, and then it comes, and then you have other things like self-esteem, mental health, public health, which everything go together. So that's number one worry of an impact on the economy and society. Number two, it's actually an old problem where Thais don't have a lot of savings and have a lot of debt. So I think the statistics was something like there's like 90 something million accounts, like bank accounts, and I think 88% of them have less than 50K, like 50 baht.
Yeah, 50.
And then within that portion, I think 80% of that have less than 5,000 baht. So it's a very precarious situation financially for most people,
especially for old people. Yeah, they retire without sufficient financial guarantee, and I think that's become a very serious problem now.
Exactly, and the way I see it, from a labor economist sort of standpoint, I think it's inevitable that some companies will replace human workers, both from financial reasons and for other reasons, right? And so in the short run, maybe within a year or two, you'll see people getting laid off. And the problem with that is it's not a problem from an economic standpoint. I think there should be transition between workers and companies, like once the economy progresses through stages of growth. The problem becomes intense when you don't have safety nets
No.
or people take a long time to find a new job or a long
Mhm.
time to find new skills.
Mhm.
Um, which brings me to the third worry, which is human capital, and the skill sets that we have, right? I think part of the stories why our economy doesn't grow as much
Mhm.
is because we have less and less workers, like fewer workers for the economy,
Skilled
and
labor.
yeah, fewer people being born, more people disappear from the workforce.
Mhm.
And test scores, if you follow PISA score, which is only one aspect of measuring human capital at a young age, is not doing great. And so
No.
at all, right? I think it's quite bad, just to be, honest about the results. Um, and so it's not looking great when you face,
Mhm.
AI, the age of AI, right?
Key
And
concerns of yours, are despite AI. I mean, before we talk about AI,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
With AI, is going to add to this intensity of the problem.
Yeah, I can give you a very brief tour of how I
Mhm.
see AI development, and then we can jump back to what to do about it.
Mhm.
So I've been following OpenAI like since, I mean, actually, I've been building AI algorithms for the past 10 years,
Oh.
but the past 2 years have been quite different,
Mhm.
right? Like you have different kinds of AI where it gets really deep, like do a really good job at like
Mhm.
very niche expertise type stuff that maybe only a few people could do in the world, right? Like this is specific jobs that AI could do, like predicting things, making certain decisions in a laboratory or in a hospital. But then last year, when you have generative AI, you see the width, like how wide the spectrum of tasks that AI could do, from very blue collar to, like a consultant or an advisor or a board of directors, that these tasks, the spectrum has widened almost infinitely, right? And
Right.
then you see stuff like the video making capabilities or cloning people from just like recently I took a class on how to clone people using stable diffusion.
Really.
It's an open source AI model. Like Kun Suthichai, it only takes 20 or 30 images of someone,
Yeah.
and you can almost perfectly replicate them in any kind of context or any kind of body.
Wow.
Um, and this is just the beginning, right? This is the stupidest AI you're going to be using
Wow.
going from today. And so you have, applications that are on the creative side, both from image, video, text, I
Trips.
don't know,
Yeah.
speech, voice, songs.
Right.
So it's no longer true that you could say that AI is not creative. I would argue that
Mhm.
it's probably not as creative as most, famous artists that we love and know about. But compared to the average human, I think it's more creative. Um, and
That is frightening. That is frightening because
yeah,
we're not talking about a few geniuses around the world. We're talking about the average human being being superseded by
yeah,
AI.
true. And a lot of what AI does today is junk. Like when it comes to creativity, right? Like, but if you interview creative people, a
Mhm.
lot of their ideas were junk. And
Yeah,
then there was one song or one
that's right. Yeah,
chord, right? Like that stuck, and then it became a hot hit.
right, right.
Yeah, like so in the future, I don't know what's going to happen because the spectrum of possibilities that intelligence could play a role has widened, right? It can now work in teams too. So if you follow Professor Andrew Ng at Stanford, um, he proposed that in the future, AI agents will work together as a team. And more you see that AI is no longer just a tool. For most people, it's a tool like a calculator you see in a store. But the way I look at it, it's more and more becoming human-like, or at our level, at least in the workplace.
Right.
And today it's only in your web browser or your Apple Watch or something. But in the future, it probably will come as a pet robot or a drone
Yeah.
or a cyborg, right? Like, and it's probably going to cost less and less
That's
uh,
true. Just
until it's everywhere. Yeah,
like mobile phones, just like computers, it gets
exactly.
less
Of
expensive.
course, like there, it's not all positive, right? Like you see all the funny cases of hallucinations and
Yes.
AI making mistakes, funny and not.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's just early, right? But you sort of sense that
It's coming.
something is coming.
Something is coming. You don't know what, but you see the shape of things, right? You don't exactly see the whole picture yet, but you see the shape of it, and the shape of it says a lot about the future. Because
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, when you started having iPhone or smartphone, things were also quite blurry. Wasn't clear whether what it could do. Because I was supervising TV production, and we used this huge Sony cameras. It cost me about 1 million baht each.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then came the first smaller Panasonic camera. It cost about half. It wasn't as good as Sony, but
Mm,
it was doable, workable.
yeah.
And I was arguing with my camera people. They say we need the old Sony thing. And I said, if I can give you two cameras instead of one at the same price, you should try this. Quite reluctantly, they tried. And
Mm.
when they came back from the assignments, and I said, how is it? He said, well, okay. I said, if it's okay, then it's okay. I mean, I don't need the expensive camera. Then about 5, 6 years later, smartphone came, and then you could take photo. The,
Right.
the first iPhone, you could take picture, video clips, and it wasn't very clear, very good. But that was the shape of things to come. So I started using them, telling my reporters and camera people, hey, I'm going to buy you iPhones, and you're going to use this to take pictures. Well, they were protesting. They were saying, no, 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 this is not professional. This is just toys. But then,
Look where we are.
yeah, look
Right.
where we are. And now I can use an iPhone to shoot the whole documentary, because the quality of the pixels is 4K, just like the TV camera. So I'm telling you that AI will repeat the formula, and with much greater, shorter span of time.
I love that observation and that historical perspective that maybe the younger generation does not have that.
No, they don't
Um,
understand. They don't understand. They will
they
say,
don't understand, but they are stressed. They are
yes,
stressed. They sense what's coming.
I know.
And I don't, like you don't need to go get a PhD in econ to be able to tell people like me that
Yeah.
like there's going to be a stress in the labor market, and then what, but I do hold belief that there is an opportunity as well, but the most likely scenario is that you have a K-shaped economy, that the two legs of the K letter is going to be so widened because people who can adopt AI intelligently and use it the right way, not making mistakes and whatnot, they're going to do super well
Yeah.
because the productivity increase, I think, far exceeds the number of workers that are missing out, that are disappearing. If you talk to people who have found a way to use AI in their work well, I think the productivity increase is more than 2 to 3x.
I know.
So the amount of time people save from boring stuff or what they call like stupid work,
Stupid
uh,
work.
you move your time, your resource to do some other things that are more innovative or create more revenue or profit. That alone, I think that's a great growth factor. But I don't see that happening for all entities or all organizations. And you will have a problem where if the employer that is not forward looking, I think the people who pay the price is not only the the stakeholders of the companies,
Yeah,
but the workers.
right.
And I worry about that scenario a lot because we don't have a culture that immediately cuts down workforce, but
Mhm.
sometimes we will wait and do nothing until it's too late.
Mhm.
I'm afraid that this is a slow COVID.
Slow COVID.
Yeah.
It's not a
Not
long,
long COVID,
it's a
it's
long,
slow COVID.
no, it's going to be a slow and long COVID.
And then what you get in the end could be the entire industry just gets wiped out slowly without realizing, right?
Mm.
So what I've been advising companies is that it's probably a good idea to start trying or adopt
Mhm.
some of these new toys, but and then find whether or not it's the right fit because it takes time for you to adjust
Yeah.
because this has to do with people and you can't just change their career entirely in overnight, right? And so it takes at least maybe a year for a large corporation to think about the next 3 to 5 years or 10.
Mhm.
How do we deal with our people? How do we upskill them? How do we, if we can't find a reason to hire them, like what do we do to maintain their dignity when they have to leave, right?
Mhm.
And if the companies don't do their homework, they're going to be forced into a very difficult situation where suddenly they have to make a decision,
Yeah.
and it's not fun, right?
And it's
So
harsh and it's sudden and
it's
it's
very
going.
sudden, yeah.
Mhm.
But I do think that Thailand has a lot of room to grow. Like I read this book, like Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. That's a really good book to
Uh-huh.
for a consultant. And what I like about this case is that while it's true that most of the challenges we talked earlier, is super hard to solve, but there are actually opportunities too. Like, because think about it, right? Like we have problem with money, we have problem with not having enough workers. Well, AI in some sense could be workers for some companies as well. And there are a lot of jobs that you can no longer find people.
Right.
So this is actually true. If you interview companies, there are jobs that have been waiting for months for people to apply, but that this just doesn't happen because there's no one, right? And so if if you find a way to adopt these and then increase productivity, and then companies start making profits, unlike last year when you look at listed companies in the stock exchange, a lot of them were making fewer profits. Uh, uh, if they start making more profit,
Mhm.
it makes sense to start rehiring people. And that's how we will get out of this.
Mhm.
We won't get out of this if we just do the same thing.
Mhm.
Then we get less and less profit, and then it's a downward spiral
Mhm.
of death. So
But
we should find a way to increase productivity ASAP in
even
Thailand.
even if the companies can rehire, can they get the right people, the qualified people that they need?
I'm actually an advisor to the committee at the parliament regarding AI
Mhm.
sort of framework and governance in Thailand. And I think the session a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to share my view on the labor market and the policies that should be implemented. So the first thing was that, like, okay, beyond just creating awareness and having people adopt so that productivity increase can happen. Beyond that, I think we need an overhaul of how we do labor market policies. For example, right? We need to make sure that the labor market functions properly, efficiently. When people get, laid off, there should be a protocol to maybe assist a bit, mass layoff, right? Which is already happening from my anecdotal evidence. Like when I talk to the people around me, I think the past few weeks have been different.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me on this, but this is more like just conversational. But if it gets to me that something is not going right, probably going to be reflected in the official numbers
Ah,
in the next few months. But our problem is we don't have a lot of good labor market data. For example, we actually have some data, but it's not the right kind of data to help with AI disruption. For example, in the US, there is a data set that can map with skill set and labor market outcome. So if we can find out, who is being impacted and who is doing well, who's not doing well, then government policies can help address people who are not doing well. And you can actually see that jobs that have declined in wages in the compensation are which kind of skill sets heavy, right? Then you start seeing that, the returns to having STEM skills have declined, which is true. This is happening. So I see a lot of parents sending their kids to coding school and stuff. It's all great, but it's not enough, because if you look at the labor market data, at least in the Western countries,
right.
the kids who have high STEM skills do really well out of college.
Yeah.
But over time, it's not doing as great as people with other kinds of skills,
Such as
decision-making skills, teamwork, some other soft skills,
soft skills.
softer skills. So I'm not saying that STEM skills are not required. It's really important. But I'm saying that
Enough.
when you have good data on, the pulse on the labor market, you as a government have a better idea who to help and what's the problem, right? Our problem is we don't even have enough people with STEM skills, right? But yeah, I think once you have good data, then and you have limited amount of money, you can prioritize a bit who to help.
I used to ask the Chamber of Commerce and the Thai Industries Federation, they should have the numbers, because their members are all private companies. They should be able to provide the kind of data the government needs, the kind of skill sets that are needed, what kind of jobs are going away and what kind of jobs are emerging. So the question probably is not that the data are not there, but is that the government does not have that system where they can sync with the information from the private sector, right? Because
that is the issue. So I talked to some people who actually own the data.
Yeah, they have it.
It's fragmented and it's not linked in a way that people can.
Which is very strange, because many years ago they talk about Thailand 4.0. Remember that?
Yep, I do remember.
Remember that? So we thought that this was a first top priority to do, and that is get all the data that are related to one another, so that the policymakers know the issues. People in the private sector can tell the government this is the kind of policy we need. So they work together. There was even a Kokoro, which is private public sector committee, whatever, is at the national level. The prime minister sits on top there, but it is incredible that it's still an issue up to today.
No, it was still an issue, and remember during COVID when I appeared on your show about how
Yeah,
how it's just a mess to find data to even save your own people's lives,
yeah,
and it was a concerted effort from multiple parties to work together as a civic society, like civil society,
yeah.
with or without government, to help people during when the vaccine wasn't here. I think people forget that that happened, right? But anyways, coming back to the AI and labor policies, so I think the government should be already be looking at uh, things like unemployment insurance or pakan sangkom, social security, whether it's enough or not. But I think unemployment insurance as a policy might be interesting because in the end, you might have a lot of unemployment spells, and there might be a needed sort of mechanism to help ease people into unemployment and push them back into jobs. It's harder than than it sounds,
I know.
but I do worry about transitions a lot because I think labor market in Thailand especially is quite high friction, um, especially in the modern sector. I think in the agricultural sector, it's pretty widely known that okay, if you lose your job, you go back to farming, which I don't actually know if that's true or not, but at least that seems to be happening. But not everyone can go back to their farming operations.
Oh, and
So
even if they go back to the farm,
yeah,
work the same way their parents were doing. They use more technology. They sell online, and I've met a few of them. In fact, many of them were very good. But then
exactly.
yeah, there's no sort of support from the government, not enough information to tell them what they should produce.
Right.
So
Now to put a cherry on top of a labor market policy, I think would be to identify new jobs. So I think the most important thing is to figure out fast what are new jobs and how to help the private sector create them. Uh, I think it has to be an organic sort of process for firms to find out, okay, if AI can do X, Y, Z, then what kind of roles do I need to expand on and search or push people to do that? Um, but the longer you wait, the more damage to the economy you're causing. I think the fastest way is to try to promote the private sector to be aware that this trend is happening. And if you have a pulse on the market, you would know that, hey, there's a new job that requires a mixed set of skills that is different from before, right? The problem is that we don't see this picture very clearly. So when we release the policy, it's sort of muted and it's not targeting the right set of people or
oh,
anyone. Um,
yeah.
so that was my suggestion on the labor side. But I think what's interesting is also on the education side. Um, we can come back at the end to talk about the AI industry in Thailand. But I think the most worrying issue is what we're talking right now, which is the future of the Thai human capital, right? In the age of AI. I think what I was suggesting to the committee was that you probably have to find a way to change the education system in a way that allows more flexibility. I even pitched an idea where maybe compulsory education should be shorter. I
Sure.
don't know if that's the right idea, but at least it's a new idea for me at least. Because it has to do with the cost and benefit of putting young people into a school.
Hmm.
Um, like on average, right? Like it depends on the context of different countries. Sometimes you have to be in school for a long time for various reasons, like maybe family, the microcosm of the society is not strong enough to grow a child, and so the child needs to be at school
Mhm.
for a long time. But for certain children who are very bright or very hungry, sometimes maybe it doesn't make sense to put them in a school for too long. Um, and especially if the school or the curriculum doesn't match with what the labor market wants or the world wants.
Mhm.
And so a revamp of how we approach education is probably needed. And I think this is asking a lot from a ministry with a lot of track record of changing ministers all the time.
Right.
But at the least they could do is probably to promote alternative education, or at least don't prevent it or harm it from growing.
Mhm.
I think we have an opposite problem from the US. In the US, so I used to live in the US and I used to work on ed policy, education policy in the US. And the problem there was the policy was too relaxed.
To real.
It was giving too much freedom to private education.
Mhm.
And so you start seeing all kinds of bad problems like, high tuition, low graduation rate, like you pay a lot of money but you don't get anything back, right? In Thailand, I do think that the opposite is true, where you don't give enough freedom for education businesses to flourish, in different kinds of ideologies.
Right.
And so people don't have enough options, and I think that's pretty dangerous,
Mhm.
right? Because in a world with AI, you don't really know what's happening in the next,
No. Right.
let alone a week.
Right.
I don't know what's happening in the next week or two.
Uh,
And sending your children to a school with a very fixed curriculum for, I don't know, 12 years or more,
mhm.
that seems risky to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
or yeah, I mean, this is a huge issue that should be debated, because
Uh,
different households have different
but,
time to spend with their kids. But yeah,
but we don't have much time
we
before,
don't.
no, we don't, before AI becomes really, really a big issue. We used to have about 5 to 10 years to, adapt to email,
Yes.
Wikipedia. I, I was one of them. And
Wow.
I thought 5 years were too short at the time. Now, the real outcome or the real impact is being felt, especially in my field, media field.
Oh
Pe-
wow. Yeah.
People are losing jobs, in the past few years, and they are stuck because they don't have any new skill sets. And they are about 40 years, up. They have children, they have family to feed, and now they find themselves in
Stuck.
very bad trouble. And think that is going to be the impact on AI, and it's going to take much, much shorter time to
I which reminds me of another policy idea, which is to subsidize the private sector
Mhm.
to run more of these sort of training programs, or innovate towards innovating new types of businesses that
Mm,
still would employ these people but use them in a different way. So I am saying this from a standpoint of a business owner.
yeah,
So a lot of new ideas don't work. That's
mm,
a fact,
yeah,
and it's risky to do a lot of them. But
mm,
a subsidy might sweeten the deal for me as an owner, that okay, maybe I'll take more risk if at least I have some cushion.
mm,
This
mm,
is easier said than done in Thailand, but it's an idea, in case some parties are watching this and want to go with it.
yeah,
Because and frankly speaking, I think a lot of private sectors are struggling and wanting to do new things.
I
It's
know.
just not easy, right? And retraining people, a lot of people,
Mm,
that's a lot of investment. And with uncertain returns, many companies won't do.
no,
And you just can't like have another school for adults. I
no,
mean, like people have to work, right? The easiest way to upskill is find a job that actually promotes learning and acquiring new set of skills.
same
Um,
time.
which is also hard to find. But at least, if the government can support somehow, that would be great, right? And it's not going to just be your industry. Like your industry was one of the first that faced sort of
Hit.
disruption.
Yeah.
But now, like I was just using AI the other day to just ask it, like why did this stock decline in price? So I think I was trading Disney or something, the US stocks, right? And within 1 second, it searches all the relevant information, all the analyst reports,
One
even
second.
did a valuation of true value of the stock
God.
within a few seconds.
My God.
So, imagine how many relationship managers at banks or brokers are going to be in trouble. I think they already feel it, but they don't. They are looking to their leaders. Like what would happen to me? Because not everyone can go live sort
Oh,
or sell on TikTok. Like
no.
you'll probably see a lot more of those for sure, but I don't think
It is
it'll be like that.
it is symbolic of the inequality because the young kids who go on doing their live programs on TikTok, on YouTube are earning much, much more money than their parents.
Exactly.
But those who don't have that skill will fall behind and will lose jobs. You see the big gap that is happening. Even before AI, I'm talking about the past few years, the difference in income gap is growing like mad.
Yeah, it's gonna grow. If you can bet one thing, I know technology is hard to bet, right? But society is probably easier to bet. That inequality will probably skyrocket. Like we both probably read Piketty's book, Capital.
Yeah, capital. Yeah,
If you look at AI as a type of capital, then there you have it.
yeah,
The returns on AI is,
that's right.
even without AI, historically has been high, much higher than what the labor returns would be. Right?
Totally. And you can't compare it at all.
No,
No.
it's like the funny experiment is this. So when I was doing my PhD, like my professor was showing me a spreadsheet and simulating a life of a farmer growing oranges, right? Like on Excel, and just drags the cell year by year versus the landlord or the farm owner. Oh, the graph is striking. You don't even have to read Piketty's book. Just do the graph.
Yeah,
And you're done with it.
okay. So what's happening in the AI industry in the country? Give us a brief walkthrough.
Yeah. So to start, right? I think it's more active now, like in the startup tech community. I think the AI hype has revived this industry quite a bit for those startups and SMEs that are still hanging around and not dead yet. We have been revived. There are a lot of awareness about building applications with AI. I think Thailand has a shot if we pick the right niche to build. I think we have a disadvantage in terms of trying to build foundational models. I think there was a debate whether or not we should have a Thai, like native Thai language model for our own use. Because if you wait 6 more months, maybe ChatGPT can already, like for example, Claude by Anthropic, can already write in Thai. I think maybe better than 99.99% of Thais. If you talk to PA New Glom, he's been talking to it, and I talked to it. My opinion from using LMs for a year, I think there's nothing better than Claude Opus 3 to write any kind of Thai writing. And so it begs the question of why do we have to develop our own language model? A lot of people have take sides, and I think that's a great debate to have. But I do think that we are underfunded by a lot. if you look at the funding that went into these things,
Yeah.
it's like almost as much as like the entire budget of the government, which is crazy to be spending that amount on one thing in an economy, right? And so that doesn't work. Um, Now you start looking, I see two opportunities. So one would be building applications on top of this wave. Uh, I think if we have enough funding and enough minded people working together, there is an opportunity within 12 to 24 months to compete in the world market. But the competition is intense because anyone can build an application using these brains. So imagine, okay, for listeners who are not in tech, right? Imagine you building Frankenstein, like a new iPhone app, right? But inside you have a choice of using different kind of brains from big tech like Meta, like Facebook, Google, or Microsoft, like OpenAI. And you can use different brains or different sort of tasks and applications. Like one day you might have a calendar app that's super smart because it's using ChatGPT in the back, or you would have a Wikipedia or YouTube or Spotify or that is significantly smarter because it has a brain in there. And so the next generation apps would probably be kind of like that, right? That's where I think we still have a shot. It's not easy, but
It's the way to go.
yeah, it's probably if we swing enough times,
Enough.
we might hit a home run.
Uh,
But it's still likely going to be a few, no, very few companies that can actually do that, due to the nature of competition. Yeah. So that's one area where I think we should be looking at that. And then that depends on venture capital funding, and the market that these companies are serving. That's more of a private sector thing. But if the public sector, the government wants to support, then maybe talk to startup ecosystem to see how they can support, right? But another area that I think could be an opportunity for Thailand is to grow an industry that piggybacks on the AI infrastructure upgrade across the world. So right now, if you look at things like NVDA, like or stocks that are just skyrocketing every day, you start seeing a trend where not only chip makers are doing better, but companies that do businesses with them also do better. So I think I mentioned earlier that players like liquid cooling provider, or like services that help data centers function better, even like the material that gets into the wiring of computers and network, make the data flow better, like very boring stuff, do better.
Yeah.
So, I think we're quite clear on EV, right? Like we're like trying to do the EV thing, but similarly, like for AI, I think the supply chain we will have to be upgraded, and so I think with manufacturing base in Thailand and our workforce are probably okay to switch to maybe certain parts of this new generation of hardware. If you look at Japan, you'll see that like in the past few years, Japanese firms are now trying to go in the back end of new toys. Like if you look at Vision Pro, which is discontinued, right? You see that a lot of parts come from Japanese companies. Like they found a niche where they don't have to be at the front, like Samsung, right? But they could still do well by providing the insights. And so if we could support the industry in this way, it could work, which could start from, inviting big tech players to start investing data centers and stuff in Thailand, but that's probably not enough.
Mm.
And then there's also another opportunity that has to do with energy, because AI is very power hungry. And so if we have excess capacity, which I believe we do, I'm not an expert in energy, but a lot of people in this industry has been telling me that we do have excess capacity. And so maybe that's where we want to go. And so that's the 2, 3 areas that I see that we still have a shot, but we have to be pretty strategic. Like, look at Singapore. A few weeks ago, Singapore released a framework for AI governance. And it's very clear from the first paragraph that Singapore does not want to miss out on this AI train. It does not want to miss out. But it is cautious of the damages like Kshaped or frauds and stuff like that. But it's very clear that they're trying to find a niche somewhere. Like, it's not Taiwan. Like, it's not doing the chip thing. It's not as big as the US or China to do everything, right? But from my reading of it is that it's trying to be a Switzerland of the AI landscape, which is very smart, by the way, because you know what? So I have a few smart interns from Ivy League this summer, and they all work on issues that are super hard, like the alignment problem, like where how to prevent AI from killing us or from disobeying our orders, or cybersecurity or guardrailing AI. So if Singapore chooses this niche, it's going to attract the smartest people on the planet who are also good because they don't want to do evil stuff. And you'll see people like young generation, like these interns are Thai, but if they graduate and then they find a job in, white hat sort of, AI job, it's probably going to be Singapore. So, and so if they can push this narrative, right, like, which it's already good at doing, right, like the ease of doing business in Singapore, incorporate in Singapore to do XYZ, and then you have this AI niche on top. That sounds like a great pitch to an investor, don't you think?
Of course, and money will flow in.
Yeah. And for Thailand, we're not Singapore, so we shouldn't be copying everything that they do. But the things I suggested, maybe we already have a foundation, maybe not. But we also have other things that we could be more focused on, which is we could be like whole stuff like agriculture, food, hospitality. I think Nong PP, who appear on your show a lot, he had a great idea, which I will say it because I'm shameless. He said that why not the sanctuary, a country, a city without AI influence. That sounds like a great idea because I think a lot of people want to live here, and that's a great angle for tourism. Like, yeah, like people, I have a feeling that in the future there'll be people who don't want to have influence coming around them with AI because it's scary. Like right now, you search Google, there's already an AI in the back probably, but it's not quite out there, like in your face.
Right.
But in the future, when you search something, when you want to buy or you want a recommendation of a product, how do you know you're not being brainwashed by something that's smarter than you? Right?
You don't know.
You don't know.
But then
maybe you don't feel it.
We cannot just be a non-AI sanctuary. We would have to work on both sides, in parallel. Because otherwise we will be left very much behind. People will just come here to rest and then go somewhere else to work.
No, but if we're going to be a K-shaped economy,
I know.
already, right? Maybe might as well make the most of it,
Okay.
right? That might work.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that might work or that might not work. Okay, but we must continue this dialogue. It is very enlightening and very instructive. So I'll need to ask you to come back. Maybe we'll talk in Thai as well. You know what? When I was listening to you, I wish that the cabinet would invite you people to go and give them a briefing in the cabinet and look into the future and say what you guys should be doing.
They'll probably have bigger things to be doing
No,
right
no.
now.
This is the future of the country, and
Yeah.
if the prime minister still has that private sector's vision before he became prime minister, he should appreciate that. He should at least have a session with you people and say, tell me what you people are looking at. Tell me because I'm so damn busy fighting all these cases. But
Yeah, these are not just my views. These are
I know.
are views that I got from talking to maybe more than 100 companies,
Yeah,
big
yeah,
and small.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. I'm sure I will try to relay this message to as many people as possible so that we can mobilize all the new thoughts, new thinking, in
yeah.
this.
And maybe before we end, right? Like I think the most important thing is don't fear, but
Mhm.
embrace it because it's already here. And
Yes, yeah.
yeah, do or die moment.
Do or die.
Yeah.
Adapt or die. Thank you very much ครับดร.นภัทรครับ